When a ruthless biker kicked a dog for fun, he was completely unaware that Barron Trump is the owner. What started as a peaceful afternoon walk would soon escalate into a dramatic confrontation, proving once again that you should never mess with a young man's loyal companion. The autumn breeze whispered through Central Park, rustling the golden leaves that painted the landscape in warm hues. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the winding paths, where the usual bustle of New York's iconic park had begun to quieten as the day drew to a close. The concrete canyons of Manhattan loomed in the distance, their glass facades catching the orange glow of the setting sun. The air carried the crisp scent of fall, mingled with the earthy aroma of fallen leaves and the faint sweetness of nearby food carts. In this peaceful corner of the park, Max, a 3-year-old German shepherd with gentle eyes and a dignified bearing, walked obediently beside his owner, Barron Trump, their daily ritual a testament to their growing bond. Security personnel maintained a discreet distance, their presence almost imperceptible to casual observers. Their trained eyes continuously scanned the surroundings, though the peaceful atmosphere of the late afternoon suggested nothing out of the ordinary. Barron's tall frame moved with the easy confidence of youth, his attention focused on Max, whose recent adoption from a local shelter had added a new dimension to his daily routine. As they approached the fountain area, the sound of distant motorcycles echoed off the park's stone structures, a jarring intrusion into the tranquil scene. Other dog walkers, regular fixtures of this time of day, began to gather their pets and drift away, their instincts sensing the shift in atmosphere. The security detail exchanged subtle glances, their postures straightening almost imperceptibly as the rumble of engines grew louder. Max's ears perked up at the sound, but he remained steady, a testament to the training he and Barron had worked on together. The young man reached down to scratch behind Max's ears, unaware that their peaceful afternoon was about to take a dramatic turn. The autumn day, which had started with such promise, was about to become a test of character, courage, and the unshakable bond between a boy and his dog. The distant rumble of motorcycles grew louder, echoing off the stone archways that dotted Central Park's winding paths. Barron guided Max toward their favorite spot, a quiet bench overlooking the lake where they often paused to watch the model boats glide across the water. The security detail, ever present yet unobtrusive, adjusted their positions with practiced efficiency, maintaining their protective bubble while respecting the young man's desire for normalcy. Max's adoption story had touched the hearts of shelter staff just 3 months ago. The German shepherd, despite his impressive bloodline and regal bearing, had been found abandoned in Queens, his faith in humans seemingly shattered. Yet something in Barron's quiet demeanor had resonated with the traumatized dog. Their first meeting had been remarkable. The usually skittish Max had approached the tall teenager without hesitation, pressing his nose gently against Barron's extended hand as if recognizing a kindred spirit. "Good boy, Max," Barron murmured, his voice carrying the warmth reserved for their private moments together. The dog's tail wagged in response, his rehabilitation a testament to the hours of patience and dedication his young owner had invested. Their daily walks had become more than just exercise, they were a shared journey of growth and trust, far removed from the spotlight that often followed the Trump name. The peace of their afternoon ritual was suddenly shattered by the aggressive revving of engines. A group of motorcycles burst into view, their riders gunning their engines unnecessarily as they roared down the park's pedestrian paths. Other parkgoers scattered, parents pulling their children aside, elderly couples hurrying to nearby benches. The lead rider, his leather vest adorned with crude patches and a skull emblem, seemed to take particular pleasure in the disruption they caused. Barron's security detail moved closer, their practiced eyes tracking the bikers' erratic movements. Agent Thompson, the lead security officer, spoke quietly into his wrist mic, his words measured but urgent. "Be advised, we have potential hostiles approaching Sector 4. Maintain distance but stay alert." The response was immediate but subtle, additional agents materializing from various points around the park, their movements casual yet purposeful. The autumn air, which moments ago had carried the peaceful sounds of nature, now thrummed with tension. Max sensed the shift in atmosphere, his posture alert but calm, a reflection of the countless hours spent in training. Barron gave a gentle tug on the leash, guiding them toward a less exposed path, but the bikers had already noticed them. The lead rider's head turned, his interest caught by Max's impressive stature and Barron's composed demeanor. As the gang circled closer, their engines growling like predators, Barron maintained his dignified bearing. His father's words echoed in his mind, "Never show them fear, son. Stand tall, stay calm, but always be ready." The young man's hand rested reassuringly on Max's head, their bond providing mutual strength in the face of the approaching confrontation. Neither of them could have known that this moment would soon escalate into something that would capture the attention of the entire city. The lead biker, a heavily tattooed man who introduced himself only as Snake, cut his engine and dismounted, his boots scraping against the pavement as he approached. His swagger spoke of someone accustomed to intimidating others, but he had yet to realize exactly who he was attempting to intimidate. The autumn sun caught the metal studs on his leather vest, creating brief flashes of light that seemed to mirror the mounting tension in the air. Snake's heavy boots crunched against the fallen leaves as he approached, his face twisted into what he probably thought was an intimidating sneer. Behind him, his gang members killed their engines one by one, the sudden silence somehow more menacing than the previous roar. The security detail's hands moved imperceptibly closer to their concealed weapons, their training keeping them ready but not obvious. "Nice dog you got there, rich boy," Snake drawled, his eyes fixed on Max with an unsettling intensity. The German shepherd remained steady, though his ears were now fully alert, his powerful body subtly shifting closer to Barron's leg. The young man's height seemed to surprise Snake, who had to look up slightly to meet Barron's calm gaze. This only seemed to anger him further, his weathered face flushing red beneath his unkempt beard. "Thank you," Barron replied diplomatically, his voice carrying the polite authority he'd learned from years of public scrutiny. "We should be going now." He turned to leave, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening, but Snake wasn't finished. The biker moved to block their path, his boots scuffing against the park's paved walkway. "Not so fast, fancy pants," Snake sneered, his gang forming a loose semicircle behind him. "That's a mighty fine breed you got there. Probably cost more than my bike." His eyes narrowed as he studied Max more closely. "Though looks like you got him from the pound. What's wrong, Daddy's money couldn't buy you a purebred?" Barron's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained steady. "Max is exactly what I wanted. Please step aside." The pride in his voice when speaking of his rescue dog was unmistakable. Agent Thompson took a step forward, his presence becoming more obvious, but Snake seemed too focused on his target to notice the increasing security presence. "You know what I think?" Snake continued, pulling something from his vest pocket, a half-eaten sandwich wrapped in greasy paper. "I think fancy boys like you need to learn some respect." He unwrapped the sandwich, the smell of day-old meat wafting through the air. "Hey dog, want a treat?" His tone had turned sickeningly sweet, mocking. Max didn't move, his training holding firm. The dog's loyalty was evident in how he remained perfectly positioned beside Barron, ignoring the offered food. This seemed to infuriate Snake even more. His face contorted with rage, and in a moment of sudden violence, his boot shot out, catching Max in the side. The kick wasn't hard enough to cause serious injury, but the shock and indignity of it caused Max to yelp in surprise. The sound of Max's pain echoed through the park, and in that instant, several things happened at once. The security detail surged forward, their weapons now visible. Barron's usually composed face transformed with controlled anger, his height now seeming more imposing than ever. And perhaps most significantly, the clicking sound of multiple phone cameras shattered the tension. Park visitors who had been watching the scene unfold were now recording everything. Snake's triumphant sneer faltered as he finally noticed the security team's weapons and earpieces. His eyes widened as recognition slowly dawned on his face. The young man he had just antagonized wasn't just any wealthy teenager walking his dog in Central Park, he was Barron Trump, and he had just assaulted his dog in front of dozens of witnesses and a full Secret Service detail. The atmosphere in Central Park crystallized into a moment of absolute tension. Snake's face drained of color as the full reality of his situation sank in. The Secret Service agents had moved with practiced precision, forming an impenetrable barrier around Barron and Max. Agent Thompson's voice cut through the silence, clear and authoritative. "NYPD has been notified. Nobody moves." Barron knelt beside Max, his movements careful and deliberate as he checked his dog for injuries. The German Shepherd whimpered softly, more from surprise than pain, pressing closer to his owner's protective presence. "It's okay, boy," Barron murmured, his voice steady despite the anger clearly visible in his eyes. "You're all right." His hands moved expertly over Max's ribs, checking for any sign of serious injury. Snake's gang members began to edge backward, their previous bravado evaporating in the face of drawn weapons and approaching sirens. "Hey man, we didn't know," one of them called out, already straddling his bike. "Snake, let's go." But retreat was no longer an option. 3 NYPD patrol cars screamed into view, blocking both ends of the pathway. Officers poured out, weapons drawn, coordinating seamlessly with the Secret Service team. The sound of news helicopters could now be heard approaching, the incident already spreading through social media like wildfire. Barron Trump's dog assaulted in Central Park was probably already trending. Snake stood frozen, his earlier aggression replaced by growing panic as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. Not only had he assaulted an animal in public, but he'd done it to the dog of a former president's son, in front of dozens of witnesses with cameras. "Sir," Agent Thompson addressed Barron formally, maintaining protocol despite the situation, "we should move you and Max to a secure location." But Barron stood his ground, one hand resting protectively on Max's head. "I want to press charges," he stated clearly, his voice carrying the kind of authority that belied his years. "This isn't just about Max or me. It's about every rescue dog and every pet owner who uses this park." The NYPD officers had already begun securing Snake and the few gang members who hadn't managed to flee. As they patted down the biker leader, their search revealed more than just the remnants of his sandwich. Illegal substances fell from his vest pockets, adding to the growing list of charges he would face. Witnesses came forward eagerly, their phones held out with recorded evidence. A young mother approached one of the officers, her voice shaking with emotion. "He's been terrorizing this park for weeks," she reported. "My children are afraid to come here because of him and his gang. We tried reporting it before, but they always disappeared before anything could be done." The park had become a scene of controlled chaos. Police photographers documented everything, including the fresh scuff mark on Max's coat where Snake's boot had made contact. Animal control officers arrived to properly document the assault, their faces grim as they examined Max and took statements about the incident. Throughout the growing chaos of the park scene, Barron maintained a composed demeanor that seemed beyond his years. News vans had begun arriving at the park's perimeter, their satellite dishes stretching skyward like mechanical trees. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the gathering crowd, all phones pointed toward the unfolding drama. Max, recovering from his initial shock, stood vigilantly beside his owner, his protective instincts now fully alert. "Mr. Trump," a senior NYPD detective approached, notebook in hand. "We need to get your official statement, but we can do this somewhere more private." She gestured toward a waiting unmarked police car, its tinted windows offering refuge from the growing media circus. Barron nodded, acknowledging the suggestion while keeping one hand reassuringly on Max's head. Snake, now thoroughly subdued in handcuffs, was being led toward a police vehicle. His previous bravado had crumbled entirely, replaced by a pale, sweating nervousness as reporters shouted questions in his direction. "Did you know who he was? Was this a planned attack? Are you affiliated with any political groups?" The biker kept his head down, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. As they walked toward the unmarked car, a distinguished-looking man in a crisp suit approached their group. "Mr. Trump, I'm Dr. Harrison from the Upper East Side Veterinary Hospital. The NYPD called us in to examine Max properly. We should do a full checkup to document any injuries for the record." The veterinarian's professional demeanor seemed to resonate with Barron, who had been raised in a world where expertise commanded respect. "Of course," Barron agreed, his voice steady. but I'd like to stay with him during the examination." Dr. Harrison smiled warmly, understanding the bond between the young man and his rescue dog. "Absolutely. We've set up a mobile unit just beyond the media perimeter. Agent Thompson has already approved the location." Meanwhile, park officials had begun gathering their own evidence. Security camera footage was being pulled, witness statements were being taken, and photographs of motorcycle tire marks on the pedestrian paths were being documented. The incident had become about more than just one attack. It was unveiling a pattern of intimidation that had been plaguing the park for months. Social media was exploding with eyewitness accounts and video clips of the confrontation. What struck most viewers wasn't just the brazen nature of the attack, but the dignity with which the young Trump had handled the situation. There was no shouting, no threats, just a calm assertion of justice through proper channels. Inside the mobile veterinary unit, Dr. Harrison conducted a thorough examination of Max. The German Shepherd remained calm under the doctor's gentle hands, his trust in Barron evident as the young man stood nearby, offering quiet words of encouragement. The examination revealed minor bruising but no serious injuries. Max's thick coat had absorbed most of the impact from Snake's boot. "He's going to be just fine," Dr. Harrison announced, making detailed notes for the official report. "Though I'd recommend some anti-inflammatory medication for the next few days, just to ensure his comfort." The relief on Barron's face was visible, though his composed demeanor never wavered. Max, sensing the positive diagnosis, gave his owner's hand a reassuring lick. Outside, the situation had evolved beyond a simple assault case. The NYPD's investigation had uncovered a trove of evidence in Snake's impounded motorcycle, documents linking him to a series of park-related incidents over the past 6 months. The discovery painted a picture of organized intimidation that had been terrorizing parkgoers for months. As evening approached, casting long shadows across Central Park, Detective Sarah Martinez approached with an update. "Mr. Trump, we've completed our initial investigation. Snake, or should I say, Michael Snake Doherty, has a lengthy record. He's looking at multiple charges: animal cruelty, possession of illegal substances, intimidation, and various park violations. He won't be bothering anyone in this park again." The news spread quickly through the gathered crowd. Regular parkgoers, who had suffered under Snake's intimidation for months, shared sighs of relief. A group of dog walkers approached Barron, keeping a respectful distance but wanting to express their gratitude. "Thank you," an elderly gentleman said, his own rescue dog sitting obediently at his feet. "We've been afraid to walk our dogs here for months. Maybe now we can reclaim our park." As the sun set over Manhattan's skyline, casting an orange glow across the park's autumn landscape, Barron prepared to leave with Max. The media crews were still present, but the Secret Service had maintained a protective bubble around the young man and his dog. Before departing, Barron made one final statement to Detective Martinez. "I'd like to use this incident to raise awareness about rescue dogs and animal cruelty," he stated, his voice clear and purposeful. "Max isn't just my dog, he's a symbol of every abandoned animal that deserves a second chance. What happened today isn't just about us, it's about standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves." The next morning's headlines would tell multiple stories: the arrest of a notorious park bully, the composure of a president's son, and most importantly, the unshakable bond between a boy and his rescue dog. But perhaps the most significant outcome wasn't captured in any headline. In the weeks that followed, local shelters reported a surge in adoption inquiries, particularly for dogs like Max who needed a second chance. Snake faced the consequences of his actions through the legal system, but the true justice was visible in Central Park itself. Dog walkers returned in numbers, families reclaimed their favorite spots, and a sense of community was restored. The park's paths were once again filled with the sounds of playing children and happy dogs, including Max, who continued his daily walks with Barron, their bond stronger than ever. As for Barron and Max, they continued their afternoon walks in the park, though now they were often greeted with smiles and waves from grateful parkgoers. The incident had transformed them into unexpected symbols of standing up against bullying and advocating for animal rights. Max, fully recovered and ever loyal, walked proudly beside his owner, both of them a testament to the fact that sometimes the strongest bonds are forged between the most unexpected pairs, and that justice, when served with dignity and compassion, can transform a community.